We all live in a time of privilege. We live in a time whereby, if wrongdoing is being carried out around the world, we have people who are employed to reveal that wrongdoing, to investigate it, to inform the people of the wrongdoing, and to ensure that the perpetrators of wrongdoing are held to account for their actions. Those privileged people in positions where they can reveal wrongdoing and explain it to the people aren't doing that. Some of them are corrupt. When wrongdoing is being perpetrated, I would expect an organisation that prides itself on being an authentic broadcaster, such as the BBC, to expose the truth, not comply to a narrative. This video is about the BBC's Andrew Benson, a corrupt journalist who has complied with narrative rather than ever reveal the truth about one of the biggest global frauds in history. Before I get into the crimes of Andrew Benson, I'm going to show you that media has a responsibility. If you are the owner or CEO or head of a media organisation, you have a responsibility. If you are the head of the BBC, you have a responsibility. If you are the head of BBC Sport, you have a responsibility. Your heads are going to roll too, in the same way that Andrew Benson's head is going to roll. BBC, maybe take a look at your own recordings. Let's have a look at this one.
The Russian founder of the Telegram messaging app, Pavel Durov, has been arrested at a French airport. Reports say authorities have been investigating a lack of moderators on the app, which they say allows criminal activity to take place. Our correspondent Will
Criminal activity to take place. The BBC's lack of exposing a fraud has allowed criminal activity to take place. The CEO of the BBC, the head of the BBC is allowing that. The head of BBC Sport is allowing that. Andrew Benson is facilitating that. Andrew Benson is complicit with a fraud.
Vernon explains what we know about the arrest.
Yeah, this is coming from a number of French media who quote sources in French law enforcement who say that Pavel Durov was arrested on Saturday evening last night at an airport near Paris. He'd apparently arrived on his private jet from Azerbaijan, and they're saying that he was arrested on the basis of an arrest warrant that was issued in connection with Telegram's failure to moderate illegal content and cooperate with law enforcement over drug trafficking, child sexual content and fraud.
Oh, fraud. Fraud, Andrew. Not cooperating regarding a fraud that you are complicit in covering up. Don't go to Paris, Andrew. There might be an arrest warrant there for you. It doesn't happen in this country, sadly. We do have those tasked with investigating fraud, the UK Serious Fraud Office, but they don't do that. I don't know what they do. They have a mandate to investigate fraud. They are a government agency working for the people, okay, a public service, but they don't investigate serious fraud. So is that misconduct in public office? Who's the CEO of this one? Delivering justice, fighting fraud, bribery and corruption. Not seeing it. When I contacted the Serious Fraud Office, it was suggested to me that perhaps I watched a different sport. Now, what am I talking about? Well, back in the olden days, when everything was in black and white, before the days of colour, and before intelligence was artificial, songwriters and intelligent people wrote songs. And one that sticks in my mind is this one. How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? How many times, Andrew Benson, can you turn your head and pretend that you just do not see? Because I have informed you on countless occasions, Andrew, that you have failed to report the true nature of the Abu Dhabi fraud. And yet still, to this day, you continue to refer to it and continue to lie about it. This is the BBC Sports website today, Friday, the 30th of August 2024, over 2.5 years after the fraud has taken place. Now, you've done an article. This one, Mercedes and Verstappen keep open communication over future move, Toto Wolff. So we're going to go into this where you talk about Abu Dhabi, Andrew Benson. This is the manufactured so-called world champion, Max Verstappen, and the billionaire owner of the Mercedes Formula One team, Toto Wolff. Now, Toto Wolff has never revealed the Abu Dhabi fraud. Toto Wolff has the resources. Toto Wolff, let's find the Toto Wolff resources that we have here. So you see Toto Wolff here, this one here. Billionaire Toto Wolff has the resources, has the media to explain to the world the true nature of the Abu Dhabi fraud. There he is in his billionaire's lair, in his lovely black polo neck. He didn't explain the rules, the regulations, what was broken, how it impacted everything. No, he didn't. That's why we require journalists to do so. That's why we require investigative journalists to expose corruption, fraud, and criminality. Rather than expose corruption, fraud, and criminality, you write nice stories about it. Let's have a look. So here's that article from Andrew Benson. He used to call himself the Chief. 29th of August 2024. Here we go. Here's the article. And we will have a scroll down of it. Well, from the top, just so you can see, Mercedes and Verstappen keep open communication over future move, says Wolff. Keep selling the show, Andrew. Keep selling the show. Might get a bit of commission for complying with the narrative. So we're talking about saying goodbye to Hamilton. You know, the record, the UK's world-class athlete, the UK's record-breaking world champion who was fraudulently deprived of a sporting world championship that the BBC's, the UK broadcaster, isn't revealing, because this man, Andrew Benson, is complying with the narrative. Moving on from Abu Dhabi 2021. That's all you've ever done, isn't it? Move on, move on, move on. Let's not focus on the fraud. Let's not focus on the fraud. Let's not focus on the fraud. Who is paying your wages, Andrew Benson? You are facilitating fraud and corruption. That is a crime. Go back to your video about this Russian. Oh, he's Russian. Oh, because he's Russian, he's bound to be a criminal, isn't it? Yeah, let's do that, shall we? Let's do that. Or shall we just look at the head of the BBC? Shall we look at the head of BBC Sport? Shall we look at you, Andrew Benson? Let's have a read. The decision does mean, though, that Mercedes and Hamilton will no longer be able to avenge what they see as the injustice of Abu Dhabi 2021. So it's just Hamilton and Mercedes that see that as an injustice. Nobody else, Andrew. Just what Mercedes and Hamilton see as an injustice. In the final race of that championship, after a bitter year-long fight between Hamilton and Verstappen. Why was it a bitter year-long fight, Andrew? Would that be that the sport facilitated Max Verstappen being a contender by enabling him to get away with illegal driving? Was it that, Andrew? Oh, you won't tell us, will you, Andrew? You're just paid to promote the show, aren't you, Andrew? By whom? By whom? Race director Michael Massey failed to implement the rules correctly during a late safety car period. Tell us about that, Andrew. Tell us what the implications of that were. Tell us what them rules are for, why they are what they are, and how those officials would have known what they are creating by not applying them correctly. I can do that on my channel, Andrew. I have done. I then forwarded that to you for you to expose, Andrew. You never have. Why is that? Why is that, Andrew Benson? Well, we know the answer. We know that you are corrupt. We will carry on. Under pressure from Red Bull. Are they paying you, Andrew? From Red Bull. And a desire for the race not to finish under a safety car. You think that's validation, do you, Andrew? The desire for a race not to finish under a safety car. You tell the Formula One supporters that that's a valid reason. The desire to not finish the race under a safety car. You know, if you're a football journalist, Andrew, would you be saying, and the referee had the desire that the game wouldn't go to penalty shootouts, so therefore that's why he allowed the goal that was clearly offside, but the teams had agreed before the game that ideally it wouldn't be a penalty shootout, so the referee could break the rules of the sport and allow a clearly offside goal just to make sure that the result was had in normal playing time rather than the penalty shootout, because the desire was that there was no penalty shootout. Is that valid? Is that a valid reason, Andrew? Thank you for your valuable insight there, Andrew. Superb journalism. No, it's not really, is it? Massey made a series of decisions that bypassed the rules and led directly to Verstappen passing Hamilton on the final lap of the race to win the championship, when before the safety car, the Briton was on track to become champion. You're not talking about him being a record-breaking 8-time world champion, suppressing the sport's record of 7 titles held by Michael Schumacher. You're not exposing the magnitude of this, are you, Andrew? For a long time, Wolff and Hamilton were bitter about that. Just Wolff and Hamilton were bitter about that, not the 13,000 comments in your comment section, Andrew Benson, where people are outraged about what has gone on and you've never addressed it. And Hamilton is still strongly motivated to win an 8th world title that he believes he should already have. That he believes, does he, Andrew? What do you believe, Andrew? What are you being paid to make people believe, Andrew? The way that you write your article, Andrew. Whose narrative is that? Because it's not the truth, is it? He was categorically robbed through systematic cheating, systematic corruption that Sky Sports narrated before it even happened. The footage that we all watched was created by F1 TV. They created a narrative, interjecting with messages that weren't even in compliance with the rules of the sport, that weren't relevant, that diverted people to think about the event in a certain way, which then it went. We didn't get to see the scale of the clear-up operation. We got replays. We got cutting from here to there, interjecting with sound bites. It was a creation. The FIA broke the rules. You're saying it's Michael Massey. There were at least 10 FIA personnel in race control. They all know the rules of the sport. They set up this last lap, which they knew who would win it based on the condition of the tyres that those cars were wearing. They then had a steward's appeal. You have an appeal process in this sport. You had 4 corrupt FIA stewards who would not reverse that result when there were clear grounds for doing so. Every team, every one of those F1 teams complied with that fraudulent ending. None of them called it out. No journalist has ever called it out. The FIA did a report. It took them 3 months to do a report and it said nothing. This is systematic corruption, and you have complied with it, Andrew Benson. Don't believe me? Check out the videos on my channel. I'm going to break down every single element of this, and you, Andrew Benson, are going to go to prison. The head of the BBC, I suggest you consider your position. The head of BBC Sport, I suggest that you consider your position. For a long time, Wolff and Hamilton were bitter about that. And Hamilton is still strongly motivated to win an 8th world title that he believes he should have already won. How does Wolff feel about the fact that his and Hamilton's story will end without the chance to win an 8th title together? You have to look at it from a point more detached than we do, he says. He is the greatest F1 driver of all time. He has beaten all the records, and there is only this one, with championships, where he is equal with Michael Schumacher, another great, if not, with Lewis, the greatest driver. So it is what it is, and we can't change that. Would I have wanted it to go the other way? Absolutely. Do I think what happened in 2021 was anywhere near fair? No, it wasn't. But we can't turn back time, and there are worse things than losing a race or a world championship. There is more drama in the world out there. So this is the narrative that you want to give out, isn't it, Andrew? Moving on from Abu Dhabi, not investigating the true nature of Abu Dhabi. You have to pretend that you have to look at it from a more detached point than where Toto Wolff does. Oh, what's your interest in the situation, Toto? Billionaire Toto Wolff. What's your major interest in that corruption? Was it the $177 million that Red Bull gave to you? Well, you know, they ensured they didn't challenge you for that, for your complicity within that global fraud. Oh yeah, there's a video about that too. This is the best that the BBC's Andrew Benson can give you. And we all deserve better. We all deserve authentic journalism. We all deserve the truth. This man is not capable of delivering the truth. This man is paid off. This man just presents narrative. How many times, Andrew? How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? Well, you're no man, are you, Andrew Benson? You are no man. When did you tell us about this one, Andrew? When did you talk us through document 58? The FIA document, the sports governing body, the government of the sport, their official document there for corrupt stewards. The outcome of that valid Mercedes appeal, which, had it been successful, would have resulted in a British driver becoming a record-breaking 8-time world champion. You know, that appeal with Toto Wolff that you're now chatting to, he didn't present himself at that appeal. Instead, they sent a barrister, you know, the legal counsel, you know, this lad. Here he is, look, barrister of the year, shortlisted for us, you know, must be an intelligent chap. Believe that. You know, when you come up against me, Andrew, maybe you should choose this lad. Bring it on. Or is he just acting on the instruction of Toto Wolff? Does Paul Harris have the ability to obliterate the corruption? But Toto Wolff doesn't want him to do that. Is that the agenda of the billionaire, corrupt Toto Wolff? Is it that? Tell us, Andrew. Or just have a lovely little chat with him, saying that he'd like to sign Max Verstappen one day. Keep selling the show, Andrew. Keep selling the show. Red Bull as an interested party allowed into an appeal where one team is appealing to the government, the governing body of the sport, that the government is not applying its own rules and regulations, and therefore they need to reinstate to the point where those rules were broken. What does that government do? Oh, we'll ask the team that benefited from that what they thought in the comments section. Well, Andrew Benson has never questioned that process. Never questioned why Jonathan Wheatley, who's going to be the new team principal of Audi, Christian Horner, the team principal of Red Bull, and Adrian Newey, the genius designer, so-called genius, whose cars are now being beaten by 23 seconds. Why they're even in the appeal? Never questioned that, have you, Andrew? Oh, they're just an interested party. But the hearing's adjourned at 2050 to allow Red Bull to consider its response. So go away, Red Bull. Let's decide you're allowed to present an argument to counter Mercedes' presentation that the governing body is breaking its own rules. So the governing body itself can't establish that it's breaking its own rules. It's allowing Red Bull to go away for 40 minutes for Red Bull to come up with an argument to counter the fact that Mercedes are saying the rules have been broken here. You've never told us, have you, Andrew? Strange that. UK Serious Fraud Office. Shall we all start watching a different sport, shall we? Or shall you do your fucking job? Because it's a fraud. Yeah, maybe that. The race director was present at the reconvened hearing. There were no objections about the composition of the stewards panel. But Paul Harris, you know, the barrister, did Paul Harris, the team's legal counsel, did he object the fact that Red Bull were there? Were you doing your job, Paul Harris? Mercedes claimed that the rules were broken. Red Bull claimed that any doesn't mean all. Oh, legally, any doesn't mean all. Ha 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 ha. Really? Really? No, it does in the context of this. It does in the... What does it mean? What does it produce if it's not all? Oh, well, that produces a corrupt outcome, doesn't it? That produces skewed outcomes that I've demonstrated in my video using tracker view. Easy for everyone to understand. Andrew Benson, the chief of Formula One for the BBC, can't explain that to people. Why is that, Andrew? Because you're corrupt. That'd be why, Andrew. Oh, and this article overrides the other one. No, it doesn't, Andrew. No, it doesn't. Oh, and the race director has overriding authority. No, he doesn't, not on those grounds. Doesn't have overriding authority to break the mandatory regulations of the sport that are set up for sporting fairness, Andrew. What's that, I hear you say, Andrew? You don't know? You don't understand? But the BBC has employed you as its chief F1 journalist. Or is it that you do understand, Andrew, and you're just lying as part of the corrupt agenda, as part of your role in covering up a fraud? Is it that you do know, Andrew? Is it that you do know? The race director's evidence. Have you exposed this, Andrew Benson? The race director stated that the purpose of Article 48.12 was to remove those lapped cars that would interfere in the racing between the leaders, and that it was his view Article 48.13 was the one that applied in this case. Have you talked about that, Andrew? You see, I have, Andrew. I've produced 457 videos, and the majority of those cover the Abu Dhabi fraud. You know, maybe it's this, Andrew. Maybe this is your reason for denying Lewis Hamilton his valid accomplishment. Maybe that's part of what makes you who you are. Who knows, Andrew? Who knows? I'm sure you know about this one, Andrew, now. It's had 146,000 views, where you, the BBC chief, exposed that Hamilton was robbed by the Abu Dhabi fraud. Where it exposes that Martin Brundle and David Croft of Sky Sports were lying about the rules of the sport before the fix even happened. But indeed, no, it's not you that's ever revealed that, is it, Andrew Benson? You've never revealed that, have you? Because you're corrupt. You are corrupt. But back to Michael Massey and what he knew. And in his view, it was 48.13 that applied in this case. How about what Michael Massey knew 1, what Michael Massey knew 2, what Michael Massey knew 3, and what Michael Massey knew 4? See, I can do that, Andrew. Bit of investigative journalism. Yeah? Showing you what Michael Massey truly knew, which wasn't what Michael Massey said he thought in that corrupt steward's appeal. Strange that. I've got 4 examples. I can do more. How many do you want? I'll come out with them. I can produce the evidence. What are you doing, Andrew Benson? What are you doing, the chief? Remember, Andrew, those in the media can be arrested for being complicit with fraud. Being complicit with fraud. But of course, you know, the Serious Fraud Office would then have to do its job, you know. Oh, I don't know. We don't have to do our jobs, do we? Yeah. You're a public service. You're mandated to do your jobs. See that banner? That's the banner of my channel. It's not by coincidence. Oh, you couldn't make it up, could you? These things just happen at random, don't they? You couldn't make it up. Just like nobody's got the ability or the resources to expose the fraud, have they? To expose the truth. What really happened. Instead, we just get the BBC journalist talking about how the manufactured champion and the billionaire owner who didn't do the right thing wants to sign him. Lucrative, money-making scheme that Andrew Benson is hyping the show up with. I mean, maybe you should Google yourself, Andrew. Maybe you should Google yourself. Look at the videos. This is your life, mate. This is your life. Videos about you are just showing how corrupt you are. How corrupt you are. Andrew Benson. There he is. The man employed by the BBC. Employed by the British Broadcasting Corporation. Employed by the head of the British Broadcasting Corporation. The head of the sports department at the British Broadcasting Corporation. Those people are responsible for who they employ and the information that is being put out by that organisation. And this is your fraudulent journalist. And you're doing nothing about it. And I've informed you that you have a fraudulent journalist and you are doing nothing about it. But this is media, isn't it? This is media all over the world. They're not telling the truth. They're just feeding the population a narrative. That narrative benefits a corrupt agenda. That narrative benefits those that are making billions. It isn't informing people of the truth. It is informing people of a story that those corrupt entities want people to believe. And that's not the truth. That isn't the role of journalism. That's corrupt. You're bought. You're bought. You are covering up a crime. You're covering up the crime of fraud. There's a penalty for that. There's a consequence. But how many times? You've got to turn your head and pretend that you just don't see. This video, Andrew, This video, I'm talking to you, Andrew Benson, because this is going to be forwarded to you. This is going to be forwarded to the BBC, not just by myself, but by many who watch it. By those of you who have watched it to this point, many of you, I want you to forward this to Andrew Benson on his social media. I want you to forward this to the BBC. I want you to forward this to the UK Serious Fraud Office. Make sure he sees. Make sure he knows. Let's see how much head turning is still going to carry on. Abu Dhabi 2021 was a global fraud. A systematic fraud by the sport of Formula One. Liberty Media, Formula One, the FIA, Sky Sports, all 10 of those F1 teams, and also now the BBC, complicit with fixing a sporting event, contriving an outcome to a global sporting event. That constitutes fraud. Nothing is being done, and it's about time it did. Check out this channel, my channel, Fixed F1 XED. The proof is here, and there is more to come. The other channel that I want you to check out is this channel, NS&C, another YouTube channel exposing the fraud. Particularly check out this video, how Toto Wolff took 4 hours to seal the deal to betray Lewis Hamilton in Abu Dhabi. Get yourself over to NS&C and subscribe to their channel, because they've been calling out this fraud since 2022 as well. A global fraud that global media refuses to expose because they are complicit, and it's the likes of the small channels on social media that are revealing the true nature of this fraud. So go and check out NS&C. There'll be a link to that video in the description of this video. UK Serious Fraud Office, do your job. Do your job. The likes of Andrew Benson need to be in prison for their part in this fraud. Please share this content. Please share it on every form of media that you can. The truth needs to be exposed, because the truth not only relates to the sport of Formula One. When people start seeing it, they'll see how this same mechanism operates in every other form of our lives that impacts our lives. This isn't just about Lewis Hamilton, who many will see as this person that's a multimillionaire, and so it's not really that much of a problem. These same dynamics exist for the government decisions that impact our lives, corruption that impacts our lives, and journalists are not calling this out. They're complicit with fraud, they're complicit with corruption, and this filthy swine needs taking down for it, along with his bosses, the head of BBC Sport, the head of the BBC. Thank you for your time.